Hi green lovers, it's Tara and today is the 16th of August and I am standing in front of my fall garden, or at least what's the startings of my fall garden, and I'm going to be growing most of my fall vegetables in my all-time favorite container garden in the world, and that is the 18-gallon plastic tote. Now, nothing beats the plastic tote in my opinion when it comes to cost, portability, and versatility. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you why I think it's the most wonderful thing for your vegetable garden. And also, I'm going to go through the steps of how to set it up, how to fill it up, and how to grow in it. And I'll also show you some examples of how I'm using this 18-gallon tote across my garden. The first reason why I love this 18-gallon tote is because it is so inexpensive. In fact, if you've got a few of these sitting around in your house, like I had this one and that one, then they're free. But even if you had to spend some money on it, these cost less than $5 in something like a Walmart or a Target. So they're made of plastic, and some people might say that plastic's not sustainable, but these will last you a good 5 years or so. And the reason why they last so long and don't get brittle and start to break like most plastic would do if it were sitting in the sun all day is because you fill it with soil, and you fill it with moist soil, and that really helps keep that sort of tension on the plastic and prevents it from drying out and breaking or frying in the sun. So that's the first reason. It is really, really inexpensive. Second reason why I love these totes is because they are actually really portable. Now, they are a little heavy, so you're going to need a little bit of strength, but they still are portable. And in fact, when you've got days like we're having today where the temperature hit, I think, 108 degrees Fahrenheit, these plants that I've got growing here, like tomatoes and squash, they do not like this kind of temperature, and they will sizzle and fry in this temperature. What I do is I actually put them on this portable, this sort of wagon thing, and I drag them off to the shade. So you can really move these around. You can either follow the sun, or you can run away from the sun if you need to get this to a certain place to get a certain amount of sunlight or less of it. Now, the third reason why I love these totes so much is just the various ways that you can use them. So, as you can see here, I've got several different types of vegetables that are growing in these totes. On the tote on the left, I have got carrots. And these carrots sprouted in like 2 days in the warmth. It was sitting here under the shade of this oak tree and in this container, and it's not going to move from this container. It's going to grow to size. It's got a beautiful depth. It's got about, I'd say about 1.5 feet, which is good enough for most of your summer and winter vegetables, and certainly for the carrots. So this is where the carrots are growing, and this is where they're going to be staying. I will thin them out as they grow a little bit bigger, but they will grow nicely over here. I can control the soil environment, and I can control the bugs, because I have a real problem when I plant in my raised beds. The roly-polies get to these and they just finish them up. They eat every single one of them. So I don't have very much luck growing carrots, and growing them in these totes is a controlled environment. The roly-polies have difficulty climbing up into them, and even if they do get there, I'm able to pick them off pretty quickly. I'm also growing beets in here, and same thing, I will thin them out as they grow a little bigger, and I can also cover it. Beets tend to be subject to all kinds of bugs as well, flying bugs, things that lay their eggs on it, and I can actually cover this with some tulle. Tulle is this sort of netting fabric that will prevent the bugs from flying into it. So I have that option as well, to cover it up with something that will still let the sun in. Now, another way that I use these is in this layering method. Now, I have started here some dill, some Swiss chard, I've got cucumbers, I've got some cilantro coming up, and I've got some leeks. So They are sitting in soil over here, and that helps keep the moisture down below these, so that even if the pots dry out, there's still a little moisture underneath. It can wick inside and help the roots also. As the roots grow deeper, they can start to go through the holes in the bottom, and they won't get root bound. The feeder roots can go out and they can find nutrition and soil underneath this. So some of these pots will continue to stay in this. Others I will move off into different parts of my garden as they grow bigger. And so it's a kind of a nursery that I use to start a lot of my plants. Here's another way in which I use these totes. I actually have them set up inside a planter. Now you may ask, why do you have to put them in the tote and then in the planter? Well, the reason is because I have not taken a lot of trouble to fill this planter with the perfect soil yet. I've put a bunch of, twigs and things like that at the bottom, and then I threw some kitchen scraps and some wood chips and stuff like that. Not exactly the best soil. So while I'm getting this planter ready, in the meanwhile, I can get plants growing in it. I can use this real estate. And what I'm also doing is I have got these little pots that I've got set up around it. So these totes are sitting in soil, and then these little 1 gallon pots are also sitting in the soil, and the water that I pour into the totes, if there's anything that leaches out, it's going to go into the soil underneath it, and it's going to be available to these 1 gallon pots as well. I will tell you, these things have grown like lightning speed. I planted these eggplants from little transplants on the 3rd of July. Today is August 16th, so it's about 6 weeks. And look at the size. I mean, they're already producing flowers, and unbelievable amount of growth. I've got a loofah plant that's growing here as well. This was not doing very well at all, and I put it here and it seems like it's taken off. So I even have a little loofah gourd growing here. Not looking very good, but something. So as you can see, there's lots of ways in which you can set up these totes and have this sort of portable garden for you, where you can control the quality of the soil, you can control the number of plants, you can move plants in and out, you can layer them, you can do all sorts of wonderful things. Now I'm going to tell you how I get them set up. Typically what I do is I have one of these or a few of these sitting around in different parts of my garden, and I just put whatever, I find dead leaves or kitchen scraps or anything like that. I usually use the lid when I've got them sitting around in my garden, because I do not want anything crawling into it to try and enjoy the kitchen scraps while I'm asleep at night. So the nice thing about it is, things like this happen. I've got a mango seed over here that has started growing. What I do is I just kind of fill up about halfway, I would say, with all of these kitchen scraps and half decomposed or even undecomposed material, and then I fill it up with potting soil. Any kind of potting soil works. I also put a handful of fertilizer, and then it looks something like this right here. So I fill it up to about that much, and then you can plant anything in it. As you can see over here, I've got a little eggplant. This was sitting in this 5 gallon pot. It was not doing well at all. You can see it's still not doing well, but that's because I was just not good at watering it, and it kept drying out. And eventually what I did was I said enough's enough, and I took it and I put it inside this, and I kind of buried it. So now this eggplant can have the opportunity of sending its roots through the holes that are at the bottom of this plant, and it almost like extended this 5 gallon pot to now an 18 gallon tote under it without any transplant shock at all. So that's another big advantage of using this sort of layering method, is you can get plants in which have just these tiny little containers, and in effect you've increased the size of the pot by just putting it inside it and kind of burying it slightly. So all you need to do is fill this up with potting soil and then make some holes, because that's really important. Drainage is really important. I've got one hole that I've made over here in this one, and what I do is I actually let the water drain from here. After I water it, it drains into this container that's sitting below it here, and I've got another little 1 gallon container with a cucumber that gets watered. You'll see that I've used the lid as the sort of catchment area underneath this container, underneath this tote. And that is because I want to be able to direct the water where I want it to go. There's a lot of great nutrition inside this and fertilizer, and whenever I water it, rather than have it sort of leach out and just sort of flow onto the ground or into the soil around it, I want to be able to catch that water and either use it for that plant that's sitting here or take it and pour it back into this. So that's kind of how I recycle the water and reuse it and get the nutrition back into the tote. You'll see over here, for this particular tote, I've actually got holes around it that I've made, and you can also, some totes you might make holes underneath it, but basically you want to be able to direct the flow of the water. So these lids, which have a hole right there only in one place, no matter where the holes are in the container, they're going to flow through that and they're going to flow into whatever you're using to catch the water underneath it. So yeah, that's it folks. That's how I get these containers set up, and this is a quick way to get a container garden going on the cheap. And you can grow this anywhere. If you're in an apartment, if you've got a large backyard like I do that's just full of clay soil and you want a controlled soil environment and you don't want to build yet another raised bed, this is a nice way to do it. All right, guys, I hope you try this method. And until next time, live green and love your greens.